How can a Christian have hope in suffering? And that really is the question we need to ask, not how can a Christian avoid suffering, how can a Christian escape suffering in this life. The Bible tells us that as Christians we will experience suffering. And so the question that we have to consider is, how can we have hope in the midst of suffering? And the Bible gives us a couple answers to that question that are very helpful. The first is that suffering is temporary. This life on this earth is described by James as a vapor. And Paul tells us that the things we experience here, the suffering we experience in this world, is light and momentary affliction. It feels to us sometimes like it goes on forever and ever and ever, but the reality is, in the whole scope of eternity, our suffering is temporary, and that God has promised us an end to our suffering, that there will come a day when there will be no more tears, no more sorrow, no more death, and no more suffering as we are with Him in His presence forever. The second thing we can remember to help us have hope in suffering is the character of our God. He is a good God, and He allows these things, these afflictions, to befall us, but He is not cruel, He is not capricious, He is good. And we can know that as our Heavenly Father, the things that He allows in our life, He has a good purpose for, that He set the limits and the boundaries on those things that we endure and the sufferings we experience, and that He is in control of those things. And that really brings us perhaps to the most helpful reason we can have hope in suffering, which is that God has a purpose for our suffering. He doesn't just put us in those situations for no reason. It's not just chaotic or accidental or coincidental or something that God loses control of. But no, really, Romans 8:28 tells us that for those who love God and are called, He works all things together for good. But then the following verses tell us what that good is, that good purpose is. And it's not that we would have a happy life necessarily, it's not that we would be comfortable, but really the greatest good that God has for us is to conform us to the image of His Son, to make us more like Jesus Christ. And so that really gives us immense hope in suffering, to know that God is doing a good thing in me, that He's even doing a good thing in the lives of others through my suffering, and that is to make me more like Christ and to bring glory to His name.